If you told me a leaky kitchen pipe would lead me to the love of my life, I'd probably just laugh it off. But here I am, with a ring on my finger and a new life. And it all started with a strange woman, a cup of tea, and a cracked pipe. My name's Danny. I'm 38 years old, and I'm a plumber. I work for a modest little company in the suburbs of Milwaukee. We do everything: minor leaks under the sink, busted shower heads, full pipe replacements in houses built before color TV. It's not glamorous work, but it's honest. And here's something I've learned: when someone calls a plumber, it usually means they're a little desperate. And when you show up and actually help them, that feeling, it sticks. I don't have a flashy truck or a crisp white jumpsuit. I drive an old Ford that makes a sound like it's sighing every time it starts, and my glove box is filled with painkillers because my back's been mad at me since 2017. But I wouldn't trade this job for anything. My days start early, 6:30 sharp. A cup of gas station coffee strong enough to strip paint, a donut I'll regret by noon, and I'm off, swiping through the job list on my phone. It's always the same: leaky faucet, clogged drain, shower won't heat up, help, water is everywhere. You never know what kind of chaos you'll walk into, and weirdly, that's part of the fun. Clients come in all shapes and moods. Some are tense, some embarrassed, some act like I'm there to steal their silverware. And some just seem glad someone showed up. In Wisconsin, we tend to be a friendly bunch. I've had folks bake cookies while I worked. One lady gave me a hand-crocheted coaster for my coffee mug. Once I unclogged a kitchen sink while the homeowner talked my ear off about cheesemaking. True story, she gave me a whole wheel of Gouda as a tip. And the things I've seen. Lord. There was the time a copper pipe burst behind a guy's aquarium wall and turned his living room into a koi pond. Or the time I fished out a whole stuffed bear, an actual teddy bear, from a kid's bathroom drain. Parents looked baffled. The kid looked proud. But under all the oddities and messes, this job gives something rare: clarity. You walk into a problem. You fix it. You leave things better than you found them. Not a bad way to make a living. Outside of work, my life's pretty simple. I rent a one-bedroom apartment on the south side. Never been married. No kids. My Friday nights usually involve a burger at Rusty Tap and a Brewers game on TV. I've got friends, hobbies, even tried to start woodworking once, but gave up after I turned a table into kindling. At 38, I figured this was just the shape my life had taken. Comfortable, if a little quiet. And then, the call. It was a Thursday, I think. Mid-October. I just finished patching a pipe at a duplex and was washing up with baby wipes in my truck when my phone rang. Standard job: kitchen sink leaking. Not urgent, but sooner the better. Address: Fairview Drive. Nothing unusual. I punched the address into GPS, tossed my wrench kit into the truck bed, and pulled out of the lot with classic rock humming through the speakers. What I didn't know then, what I couldn't know, was that this wasn't going to be just another house call. This one was different. Most of the time, I forget client names by the time I pull out of their driveway. It's not personal, it's just the nature of the job. When you're bouncing between 6, 7 houses a day, everything starts to blur. Faces, addresses, even the problem you just fixed. But hers? Michelle. Her name stayed with me. Maybe it was the way she spoke on the phone. Calm. Not rushed or panicked, but with a tone like we'd met before. Like she expected I'd say yes. Hi, I've got a leak under my kitchen sink. I think it's the pipe. Could you come by today? Sure can, ma'am. I'm already in the area. Be there in 20. Her house was tucked away in one of those quiet, tree-lined neighborhoods that look like they've been there since the 50s. Big yards, swing sets, seasonal wreaths on the doors. I'd passed this street a dozen times but never had reason to stop. The place itself was cozy. White shutters, clean siding, a little ceramic pumpkin on the porch step. October air, crisp and cool. I remember thinking it smelled like cinnamon. She opened the door before I could knock. Michelle was in her early 40s, maybe a bit older. Hair pulled back loosely. A soft gray cardigan. No makeup, but something about her eyes made you slow down. She smiled like she knew something you didn't. "Thanks for coming so quickly," she said. "Come on in, it's the kitchen over here." I followed her past a narrow hallway into the heart of the house. The kitchen was warm and smelled faintly of baking bread, though I didn't see an oven on. Under the sink, a small puddle had formed, enough to concern someone who didn't want their floor warping. I crouched down, opened the cabinet, and spotted it right away. A brittle plastic elbow joint, cracked clean through. Probably original to the house. "Yep," I said. "She's cracked." "Not your fault, just old plastic." "Can you fix it?" "I've got spares in the truck. I'll swap the whole piece out. Shouldn't take more than 45 minutes." As I got to work, Michelle stayed in the kitchen, sitting at the small breakfast bar just a few feet from where I was on my knees, digging into pipe fittings. Most folks leave the room, maybe check in once. She didn't. She sat there. Watched. Not awkwardly, just there. "You want some tea?" she asked after a while. "It's cinnamon. Just made it." I hesitated. "I appreciate it, but I've got a few more houses to hit today. It'll only take a minute." And before I could protest, the kettle was already going. Not gonna lie, it was good tea. Warm, spiced, not too sweet. Came in a real mug, too, not a paper one. I found myself slowing down a bit as I worked. The tension in my shoulders started to ease. "I just moved here a few months ago," she said, watching me check the fitting on the new joint. "After the divorce." "Oh," I said, not sure what to say. "Yeah. 20 years married, and now it's just me. Thought I'd try the fresh start thing. So I bought this place. It needs work, but I kind of like that." "That's brave," I said. She smiled again, quietly. "Maybe. Or just necessary." The pipe job went smoothly. By the time I packed up my bag, the floor was dry, the drip was gone, and she was on her second cup of tea. "You're very thorough," she said. "Just doing my job, ma'am." "You don't have to call me ma'am," she said. "Michelle's fine." "All right, Michelle," I said, chuckling a little. "Call me if anything else acts up." "Oh, I will," she said. "I promise." And the way she said it, I believed her. The next day, just after noon, I was halfway through a turkey sandwich at a diner when my phone buzzed. Same number. Michelle. "Hey, Danny, sorry to bother you again. But I think something's wrong with the kitchen faucet now. The hot water handle just snapped off." My first thought wasn't about tools. It was, already. "Sure," I said. "I'll be there in 30. Same street. Same quiet yard. Same little pumpkin on the porch." But this time, there was a folded blanket draped across the railing, like someone had just been sitting outside. She answered the door a little too quickly. Same soft smile. Different sweater, deep burgundy this time. "I'm so relieved you could come again," she said. I nodded and headed straight to the kitchen. Sure enough, the hot water handle on the faucet was broken, clean off. Too clean. I've seen plenty of broken faucet handles. They usually crack, warp, split weird at the threads. This one. It was snapped. Intentionally or not, someone had put real force into it. Still, I said nothing. "Looks like we'll need to replace the whole fixture," I said. "Do you have another one?" "I've got a few in the truck. I'll find one that matches your style." She followed me as I walked back through the house, and when I returned with the part, she was already sitting at the bar again, 2 mugs waiting. "Figured you wouldn't say no to another cup," she said, nudging it toward me. I laughed. "You figured right. I worked while we talked." Or rather, she talked, and I found myself listening more than usual. She told me about her job, online teaching, mostly adults going back for degrees. She shared stories from the week, a neighbor's dog barking at shadows, a cracked light bulb she replaced herself. She made it all sound like we'd known each other for years. And it was different this time. Not just the faucet. The way she looked at me, the pauses in her stories, the small glances she thought I didn't catch. When I finished installing the new fixture, she offered lunch. Leftover pasta from last night. Shrimp and garlic. You're welcome to stay and share it. It caught me off guard. Clients don't usually offer lunch. They barely offer eye contact. I smiled politely. I'd love to, but I've got 2 more stops today. Of course, she said, and for the first time, her smile faltered. Then she caught herself and added, maybe another time. As I packed up, she walked with me to the door. You're a good man, Danny, she said. Not just good at fixing things. I didn't know how to respond to that. So I just said, call if anything else leaks. She nodded. But the moment I sat in my truck, I knew. Something was off. Not wrong. Just different. She'd broken that faucet handle. I was sure of it. The way it snapped. The timing. The tone in her voice. And yet, I wasn't mad. In fact, some strange part of me was flattered. She wasn't calling because she needed a plumber. She was calling because she wanted me to come back. The next morning, I expected her call. But it didn't come. Not at 9. Not by noon. Not even mid-afternoon. And I'll admit it, I was checking my phone more than usual. I didn't have any home visits scheduled that day. The company sent me out with my coworker Tom to Sheboygan, about 50 miles north, to pick up a batch of special order parts that hadn't come in. Nothing glamorous, just fittings, flanges, a few heavy boxes of copper joints. We were told to bring them back before day's end. So we loaded up the van, hit the freeway, grabbed gas station coffee, and settled in for a quiet haul. But I wasn't quiet. My mind kept drifting. To her porch. Her smile. That look she gave me when I said I couldn't stay for lunch. I told myself I was overthinking. Clients get attached sometimes. That's normal, right? And yet, it didn't feel like that. It felt like something was building. Around 4:45, just as we were driving back into cell service range, my phone buzzed. Michelle. Hey, Danny. Sorry to call again. There's water leaking from my upstairs bathroom. I think something's wrong under the sink. Her voice was soft. Calm. But there was something in the tone, like a hesitation right before each word. I glanced at Tom, then answered. Hey Michelle. I'm actually out of town today picking up parts. But my partner's working nearby, I can ask him to swing by. There was silence. Then, no, that's okay. I'll wait. It's not urgent. I just feel better when it's you. You already know my house. That pause in her sentence wasn't accidental. She meant it. She didn't want the leak fixed. She wanted me. All right, I said. I'm off the schedule tomorrow evening. I can come by after 6. Perfect, she said. I'll be home. We hung up, and I sat there, holding the phone like it might buzz again. Tom took one look at me and raised an eyebrow. Was that her again? Yeah. The faucet lady. Yep. He gave a low whistle. She's got it bad. I didn't say anything. He wasn't wrong. But I wasn't just thinking about her feelings. I was thinking about mine. About how her house didn't feel like a stranger's house anymore. About how every time I stepped inside, something shifted in my chest. About how I hadn't had dinner with someone just because they wanted my company in. I don't know how long. As the van rolled back toward Milwaukee, headlights flickering across the road, I felt it in my gut, this next visit wouldn't be about a leak. Something was about to happen. And whatever it was, I was already halfway in. By the time I pulled up to her house the next evening, the sky had turned that soft gray blue that only shows up in October, just before it dips into full darkness. Her windows glowed warmly, like the inside was lit by something more than bulbs, like comfort had moved in and taken root. The porch light was on. The ceramic pumpkin had been joined by a small lantern. Someone had swept the leaves. I grabbed my tool bag out of habit. I already knew I wouldn't need it. She opened the door before I even knocked. Glass of wine in one hand. Soft music floating from the kitchen. Eyes brighter than I'd seen them before. "Hey, Danny," she said like she'd been waiting all day to say it. "Evening," I nodded. "You still got that leak?" She tilted her head and smiled. "Sort of. Bathroom upstairs. You know the way." I followed her in. The smell of garlic and something baking greeted me first. Then candlelight. Real ones, tiny flames flickering on the windowsill and the kitchen island. She hadn't just made dinner. She'd set a scene. I went upstairs. Turned on the bathroom light. Nothing was leaking. The faucet was fine. The pipes were dry. Everything was perfect. I stood there for a second, then turned as she appeared in the doorway behind me. "It's not broken," I said. "I know," she replied. Her voice wasn't playful. Not teasing. Just honest. "I didn't know how else to get you here. I felt stupid asking you to come over again. I thought if I gave you a reason, you didn't need a reason," I said quietly. She stepped inside the room. We stood a foot apart. "I broke the kitchen handle on purpose," she admitted. "I wanted to see you again." I didn't know if it was okay to just say that. Her face was open, nervous, but brave. "I'm not crazy," she added quickly. "Just lonely. And when you're here, it feels like the house breathes again." I looked at her, really looked. No tools between us. No dripping pipe. Just her. Just me. And something between us that had finally stopped hiding. "I'm not great at this either," I said. "But I'm here." She smiled. The kind of smile that says more than words. "Dinner's ready," she whispered. We went downstairs. I didn't grab my tools. I didn't look back at the sink. The table was set for two. Pasta with roasted tomatoes and garlic. Fresh bread. Store-bought pie on the counter with a note that said, "Don't judge me." We sat and ate and talked like people who had finally stopped pretending. She told me about her marriage, how long it had been over before it ended. I told her about my quiet apartment and how I sometimes left the TV on for background noise. She laughed at my stories. I leaned into hers. We weren't rushing. We weren't trying. We were just together. After dinner, we moved to the couch. I took off my boots. She handed me a blanket. We didn't kiss. Didn't hold hands. Just sat. The jazz station played softly. Her dog, a tiny, snorting thing named Clove, curled at our feet. Outside, the wind blew leaves across the porch. Inside, everything was still. When the clock hit midnight, I realized I hadn't checked my phone once. I wasn't thinking about my next job. I wasn't thinking about anything except her. That night, I didn't go home. And not because I wasn't welcome anywhere else. But because for the first time in years, I felt like I'd been called to the right place, without a wrench in my hand. Sometimes life shifts slowly, over months, years, through choices that seem small until they're not. And sometimes, it turns on a dime. One dinner. One quiet couch. One moment when neither of you wants to leave, and both of you finally admit it. 2 months passed since that night at Michelle's house. We didn't rush anything. We didn't try to define it too fast. But from that moment on, everything changed. At first, I still worked. Answered calls, crawled under sinks, replaced toilets, patched up basements. But every day, I ended up back at her place. Sometimes for dinner. Sometimes just to talk. And sometimes for no reason at all. Eventually, it stopped feeling like her house. It became ours. One evening, I was tightening a loose hinge on her kitchen cabinet when she came up behind me and leaned on the counter. "You know," she said, "I think it's time you stopped fixing other people's faucets." I looked up at her, confused. "You mean?" "I mean," she said, smiling gently, "I want to keep you for myself." I laughed. She didn't. "I'm serious. I know it's selfish, but I'd love if you didn't have to go climbing into strangers' bathtubs anymore. What if we figured something else out? Together." The wrench in my hand suddenly felt very heavy. She meant it. Not as a joke. Not as a dream. But as a real proposal for a different life. And the craziest part? I wanted it too. We sat down that night and talked it through. Our finances. Our plans. What I'd do next. She had her online teaching gig, and it was stable. I had some savings. I could take a break, maybe start something of my own. No more 6 a.m. calls. No more late-night pipe bursts. Just time. For her. For us. The next week, I gave my notice. My boss didn't look surprised. He leaned back in his chair and smirked. "Let me guess," he said. "Pumpkin porch lady." "Yeah." "Well," he chuckled, "sounds like she patched more than just your schedule." 6 weeks later, we got married. Simple backyard ceremony. Candles in mason jars. Her sister crying in the front row. Tom, my old coworker, brought a crockpot full of chili and gave a toast that ended with, "Here's to the only plumber I know who retired because of a leaky heart." We adopted a dog from the local shelter. A mutt with one ear that wouldn't stand up and a bark that scared absolutely no one. We named him Jasper. He sleeps at the foot of our bed and acts like our mailman owes him money. And me? I don't fix other people's pipes anymore. Now I fix what matters in this one house: squeaky drawers, wobbly chairs, the occasional drafty window. And when I'm not doing that, I write. I started a blog about home repair. Not the show-off kind. Just honest posts with titles like, "What the heck is a wax ring?" And, "Yes, you do need Teflon tape." But mostly, I live. I wake up beside her. We have coffee on the porch. We talk about nothing and everything. The silence we used to hate. Now it's ours. Every once in a while, my old number pops up somewhere. An old neighbor calls, or a client finds me in the search history and asks if I still do plumbing. I always smile. "No," I say. "Not anymore. I've only got one house on my list now." Because the truth is, I wasn't just fixing leaks all those years. I was waiting to be called home.